Since when am I Faust? Chapter 1. The Mare in the Mirror. Warmth. That was the first thing I noticed. The sun was slowly rising and the golden hue was stretched across the sky. The sound of birds began to fill the air and the constant ticking sound from a clock almost became unnoticed. With my face buried in my pillow, I hid under the warmth of the covers. Despite my best efforts, I felt myself slowly rousing from my sleep. Peeking one eye open, I saw how a ray of light had made its way past the curtains and landed on me. I groaned in complaint as I stirred from my slumber. My movements were slowed, and the task of opening my eyes was exhausting. It was warm. Too warm. I made a move to sit up past the stiff sheets that I laid in, but for some unknown reason, my room seemed different. It felt odd, like it wasn't even mine. I could tell, seemingly by the atmosphere and smell of the dusty drapes, and even though my eyes were still hazy and trying to adjust to the harsh light, I began to get an idea of my situation. The air was a lot drier than I remembered my room being, and it smelled stale, like it had just been sitting there for ages. I attempted to rub my eyes, but I found my hands to be unresponsive. I gave a frustrated groan and wiped my eyes with my wrist, and once I was done, I was able to see more clearly, and my senses started to return. Immediately, I noticed that everything felt off. The room, my bed, the smells, and my body, everything was wrong. My muscles, for the first time in my life, felt foreign and unnatural. The feeling that I had could be linked to wearing a full bodysuit of thick, heavy clothing, but it also felt like it was me. My heart was beginning to speed up as panic started to settle in. Despite lying in the bright sunlight, I felt a sinking chill wash over me. Questions stormed to my now sobering mind, and worries of being kidnapped or held hostage demanded my attention. I decided to do a quick check to make sure that I was at least physically alright, but when I did, the already evident chill in the room dropped to sub-zero. I had no hands. My stumpy arms were covered in an off-white fur, and red hair hung down just at the corner of my vision. It took a minute or so for my mind to kick in and realize I was holding my breath in fear. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream. In fact, I was just about to scream, but as soon as I inhaled, I started to choke on the thick dust floating through the air. I ended up wheezing and coughing, thumping my arm against my chest. Collecting enough saliva to swallow, I managed to wash down the little thing, much to my disgust. I tried calming myself physically, taking slow, deep breaths to prevent hyperventilating, but I made sure to take precautions to avoid making the same mistake twice. By this point, I was fully awake, but I was shaking. The room I was in looked abandoned, like it hasn't been used in years. Cloths and drapes covered over the furniture, and if not for the dust, the wooden floor showed no signs of age. The room itself was rather large, with purple walls and gold accents. I saw sizable double doors to my right, which led to what I would guess to be the hallway. To my left was a glass door leading to a balcony. On the wall behind me was a door to a washroom and another to a walk-in closet. While I was looking around, a shimmer of light caught my eye. On the other side of the room, a drape covering the furniture had fallen slightly. Inspecting it from afar, I noticed what looked to be a mirror stood there. Both fear and curiosity filled my soul. I just had to know. I needed to know just what has been done to me. Because, well, I wasn't even sure if I was human anymore. I had to get over there. It was for better or for worse.
Okay, let's just do this slowly.
I mumbled, slowly sifting my new limbs around with unfamiliar muscles. Each movement brought a different sensation, one alien to me, and each one sent a shiver down my spine. My mind then turned to my voice. I had noticed a feminine tone in my voice when I spoke, and it freaked me the hell out. The whole situation only made me tenser. Waking up in an unfamiliar room with a new voice and a different body. It was enough to make me feel sick.
Just a little more,
I urged myself. I was leaning my head out to see the distance I was from the ground. The torrent of thoughts storming my mind proceeded to demand my attention. However, the logical part of my mind kicked in. It convinced me to focus on my goal rather than my situation. My goal being to get out of here. I shifted out from under the bedsheets and found my legs to match my arms. I scooted back off the bed, putting one leg on the ground. When I did, I felt my sense of pride return to me, and I opened my mouth in victory.
No problem.
A loud thump echoed through the halls of Canterlot Castle, and Celestia looked up from her throne in confusion.
What was that?
She looked towards the direction that she heard the sound, and with a hopeful gasp, her eyes glazed over. Each possibility was painting its way in front of her eyes as to what it could be.
Your Highness?
A mare spoke up. The voice of a job applicant reminded her of where she was and what she was doing.
Oh, right, sorry. Do continue, Lily Breeze. Blum.
I finished with a groan. I laid there, sprawled out on the ground. I was waiting for the pain of falling on my face to pass. The nose area was incredibly sore, and I think it now stuck out a little further than before. It also seemed to be more sensitive to the scents around me. That is, until the fuzzy cloud I kicked up from falling drifted down to my level. The dust just ended up stinging my eyes and causing my nose to itch. And then I sneezed. Another cloud.
Ugh, maybe I spoke too soon.
I groaned again as I rubbed my muzzle? My pride and feeling of accomplishment had left just as quickly as it had arrived. Once the pain died down, my quest to get to the other side continued. The mirror itself was too dusty to see my reflection clearly, especially from this distance. However, that could be fixed relatively quickly with a little blow on the well-polished silver.
Okay, right arm moves back, and left leg moves forward.
I coached myself, taking one step at a time until I was able to carry a slight rhythm. I looked like an idiot, but I didn't care. As I made my way around, the unfamiliar sounds of my limbs against the floor reminded me of hooves. Once I stumbled my way to the mirror, I took in a slow, deep breath. I made sure to be careful not to breathe in the dust as quickly as last time. Carefully working my new facial muscles, I did my best to blow away the fuzzy layer. Surprisingly enough, I was able to make a circle with my lips successfully. The dust rolled into fuzzballs and floated off of the mirror, and slowly my reflection began to clear. Once they were out of the way, I could see the image of a whitish female horse still blowing in the mirror. Her head was covered with crimson red hair making up her mane, and her eyes were blue, intense, and terrified. To my horror, the reflection copied everything that I did. That was what made it terrifying. Looking at my reflection just drilled in the fact that somehow I was now a small horse. I wasn't even an average horse, I was just some creature that had cartoonish proportions. Proportions that I knew all too well. The more I stared, the more I started to wish that I hadn't looked. I was a pony. I had a horn and I had wings. But I was small. Looking at the proportions, I guessed that I was the same size as an average pony, but how would I know this, you ask? Well, the reason I knew anything at all was thanks to my younger sister. One time while I was up late working on a project for high school, I fell asleep at my computer. My sister took the opportunity and taped me to my desk chair, and then she forced me to watch the first season of My Little Pony as a prank. To my surprise, it was actually pretty good. And then a week later, I started on season 2.
This can't be happening,
I whispered. A small pang of guilt shot through me as I spoke. I continued to try to think of a plausible explanation for my predicament, but unfortunately I couldn't come up with an answer that I was willing to accept. Not only was I now a female horse, but I was also a fictional cartoon character, and one that I knew next to nothing about. I stared at my reflection in shock, unable to move because of my mind's constant refusal to accept the reality that I was facing. My thoughts were rampant and uncoordinated. Each question that I asked myself was worse than the last. It was all like a constant stream of panic-filled thoughts, until I got caught on one. One crucial question with my newfound situation.
Am I stuck here?
I whispered. Again, a pang of unexplainable guilt shot through me. My eyes had started to water, and I began to cry quietly. Usually I would have held it in, but I felt like it was okay in this situation. I watched as my tears dampened the floor. My pitiful whimpers were just barely audible. The dust on the ground slowly found itself to be a paste-like substance, and my chest began to ache.
Oh, crying out loud! Stop crying already! This attitude doesn't suit you!
A female voice called out. I stumbled back and almost fell over. I had quickly gone from depression to fear. This voice that spoke up, it carried an air of age and authority, and for some reason I could feel the frustration fixated on me.
Who's there? Show yourself!
I demanded. To this, I could feel her eyes roll, and the response easily conveyed the deadpan expression that she must have had.
Really? You couldn't come up with a line that hasn't been overused to the point of being cliché?
Even though my eyes were darting around the room, I couldn't find where the voice was coming from, so I started to look around the room in hopes of finding this person. Perhaps they knew what was going on, and then I could get home.
Come out!
I called, but only got silent disappointment, almost like a quiet sigh.
You don't listen well, do you?
The voice sounded like whoever was speaking had their arms crossed, and their head shaking with minor amusement. At least I hoped it was amusement. I was near the dresser at the rear end of the room when she last spoke. Peering into it, I found nothing that hinted at anyone being there. It was just an old set of clothes and a small box. It had a picture of a pen and an inkwell. However, soon I gave up my search, sitting on the ground in defeat.
Please, I just want to know what's going on. Why am I like this, and where are you?
I begged. The silence hung in the room for several seconds, as if she were pondering what to say.
Oh, okay, fine. It was fun while it lasted. Look to your left.
I did as I was told, having nothing else to go on. As I did, I found myself staring back at the mirror again. The mirror that I had now become sat there in the mirror. I blinked and tilted my head, and then suddenly the mirror in the mirror sat up straight and smiled a big smile. She carried an age to her. It was clear as day in her eyes. They seemed to be focused. A fire burned deep in the back of those eyes, and it terrified me.
Hello, my name is Lauren Faust. And who might you be?
My reflection greeted me as she gave a small wave with her hoof. I would have stumbled back onto my rear, but I found that I no longer seemed to be in control of my body. Out of the corner of my vision, I could see my hoof was moving back and forth. My anxiety rose to an all-time high as I began to get a full sense of my unusual situation. So, I was somehow stuck in someone else's body, with them still inside of it. The only reassurance that I've had today is that I wasn't dead, which was always a good thing.
It's Alex. Why can't I move?
I panicked in place, only able to move my mouth.
Alexander. It's just, Alex. Oh, okay. That will take some getting used to.
She said, tapping her chin with her hoof.
In any case, that's a nice name. I would say it's nice to meet you in any other circumstance, but, well, we are in an unfortunate predicament.
She tilted her head down slightly and her features became sorrowful. I couldn't help but feel sympathy for her, as I saw the grief held in her eyes. However, as quickly as it appeared, she covered over them, and her face became stoic and businesslike. I can already tell that this is gonna be one hell of a fun frickin' ride. I just hope that Lauren doesn't bash him in too much. Anyways, let's get on to our powerful donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Gauntlet, and Only One Thing. Zar630, Strix, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Pastel Skies, Magazine, Dospo, Madman Stan, Delta Omega, Jack Hedge, RuneScythe9852, Hunter Norman, Stephen Bingham, Dash of Evergreen, Riney Dragonwolf, Ponyman, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brethren Mordred, Rondon Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitsune 9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Tim Bob, Needs a Life, and many more amazing people. Thank you all very much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest.